Well, good day to you. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your journey today. I am excited because I get a chance to spend time with two world shapers who are going forth and shaping their world and bringing their influence at a time when both the world needed it and continuing to build upon it now. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Josh Phelps and Dave Kent here. Josh and Dave, it's an absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you. Thank you for taking the time to be here, and thank you for sharing your experience with all of us.
Yep. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Absolutely. So look, I'm realizing now that you two are both two different people. I get a chance to see you. So if you're watching this, it's actually very clear. But like in terms of listening, you might hear two voices coming at you that may not sound all that different. So why don't we go first and give Josh a chance to introduce himself, and then we give Dave a chance to introduce himself, and then that way we can all also kind of like associate you with the voice as we go off here. So Josh, let us know a little bit about you. We'll go from there.
Sure. I'm Josh Phelps, born and raised out here in Winchester, Virginia, a small community in the kind of the northern part of Virginia, not too far from the DC metropolitan area. And I'm now president of a small family business called Winchester Metals. We're a structural steel distributor, fabricator, and processor. We have 48 employees over 2 shifts. And I've been here for 25 years working in our business, and co-host along with David of our own podcast called Healthy Team, Healthy Business. And that's where we've kind of made it our mission to talk to professionals in a variety of fields to try to find a way for employers to do a better job of introducing their employees to the ideas of health and wellness, taking care of themselves, whether it's financial health, mental health, physical health, nutrition, those types of things. We think that's a missing link that employers are not providing to their employees. And we're working hard to make those conversations happen. So happy to be here today.
Yeah, I'm Dave Kent, and likewise, thank you for having us on here today. Like I was mentioning kind of earlier before we hit the record button, Josh and I started talking back around COVID time, and I had been having a morning meeting with my company of about 20 people. I own a promotional products family with my business here also in Winchester, Virginia. And we were practicing what's called lean manufacturing for about the last 10 years, and saw that as a great thing that we were doing for the company. And at its core, it's continuous improvement. But then talked a lot with Josh about kind of the other aspects of health, both financial health, your mental health, and kind of saw that there was a need to marry those kind of topics together. And like he was saying, we started the podcast, Healthy Team, Healthy Business. So excited to be here.
Well, I'm really excited to have both of you here, and I'm glad you already like spoke to this here. But like I like to figure out, what is your mission? Like, what is it that you're about? And I'm hearing here that there's something that was really driving you around like the wellness aspect within business here. So can you just speak a little bit more in terms of like how you see your mission, and what made you say like, hey, you know what, the two of us, we're going to raise our hands to be kind of stewards of this mission going forward?
I can tell you from my standpoint, I've been kind of involved as a back office person in our company for most of my career. So handling benefits, finances, and internal systems and things like that. So, every year, if you're a business person that has insurance coverage for your employees, I mean, you go through the renewal process. And every year I got more and more frustrated that there wasn't some kind of incentive built in for if you were healthy. You just kind of got whatever the market rate was and whatever your experience was, and boom, there you go. And nobody was talking about it. So I started probably in 2015, 2016, something like that. I actually outsourced, hired a local nutrition coach to come in and start doing seminars for our employees, all voluntary. But in the hopes of just kind of educating. I guess Dave and I both believe if you just educate people, then they can make their own choices. But if they don't have the education to even start with, it's hard to even make a sound decision. So we started doing that. I fell in love with it, got to the point where I put myself through a year-long course to become a certified health coach myself, and started doing the program myself. When that other person moved on, I've since found someone else to sub it back out to. And that's what we're doing. And it works out great for our employees. And again, like I said before, I think we were recording it. If I can get one person to change their lifestyle in some way to help us save on a massive future insurance claim, maybe it's a pending heart attack or, some other terrible diagnosis, and they can change their life for the better. We've done a heck of a job if we can do that with one person. And we realized we need to let other people know what we're doing, because it's not that hard. It's not that expensive. And other employers need to be doing the same thing that we're doing. So that's why we started the podcast, because there's only two of us. It's not like we can go knocking on doors and do that. We both have full-time jobs and families. So we decided this might be a better way to reach a broader audience.
Awesome. I appreciate you in a sense answering the call and hearing like, hey, there's an opportunity here. And from what I'm hearing, you stepped into this years ago. The podcast is a more recent arm of this, but it's been to like some extent here. You're like, hey, I've seen this as a problem. You were addressing it in a certain way beforehand by actually bringing people in and having your employees get a chance to have that experience. And then you're like, all right, now that I'm doing this, let's take this to. You and Dave linked up and said, let's take this to a different medium, different platform. I want to call that out in here, because like there's some part of this that I appreciate that you start with that, because there are times where I think we think that, oh, if we go straight to the podcast or we go straight to the branding or whatever it is, that's where the beginning actually starts, and we're quote unquote beginners in this, or we're new at it. But I like how you said, like, back in 2015, I've been trying to solve this problem, or been working on this problem for several years so far, and this is just a new way, or another way that we are also like addressing that here. Yeah, Dave. I feel like something like there's something you want to add into the conversation. What's flowing through for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, Josh hit the nail pretty good on the head there. But to your point too, yeah, I mean, I had started with the lean journey, and prior, Josh was doing more of the health journey, like you said, for at least a decade. And I would say a lot of it was COVID. People look at COVID for a lot of negatives, but I see it as being a lot of different positives. It came a lot of different good positives in my life from it. And primarily what I'm talking about is we have the opportunity to take health, all these different topics, upon ourselves, and we can kind of allow somebody else to dictate what we're going to do with them. And that's what I saw it as, an opportunity to, like Josh said, I mean, we can educate and tell people that, yes, this is this COVID thing that's out there, but if you're eating a Milky Way and a Mountain Dew and cigarette at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're probably not setting yourself up for successful health and being able to combat COVID when and if you do get it. So that was kind of, to me, I looked at it as a good catapult for, kind of like you're saying, the next level of how can Josh and I continue to kind of try to help society, because that's really the objective. Is we're going to help our teams, but as a result, you have less divorce, you've got better household structure, you've got healthier employees. So as a whole, then society becomes better, and our mission of now, as a result, a successful company as a byproduct of that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate this, and World Shapers, I want to call out, like, one of the things I've been appreciating about talking to both you, Dave, and you, Josh, is like there's a bigger mission at play, and you're tapping into like a larger thing around wellness, even getting into like mental health and such. But at the same time, you're able to stay really grounded and really practical about like both the implications to a business and the business owner, to the implications to the employees, as well as like just the day-to-day way. Like, so when you were just describing right now, Dave, about like how it might impact someone's like relationship, like very like I feel that you're able to keep a practicality to this, which I think is important for us listeners that are like looking to shape our world and saying like, oh, I just want to go out and do something good in the world. It's like, you can. And if you can bring it down to like the real ways that like, someone at 9 o'clock in the morning is going to have a different day in their life, it just like, I feel the impact of that. And I also feel like the tangibility for me as someone that's getting to know you and starting to see what's going on here, to feel like, oh, from your leadership styles as well, it feels really like, it feels very approachable. And I just want to call that in here as we go on and just reflect that back here, because it's like in terms of the mission and what you're doing, there's a level of it that just feels so solid that I'm like, oh, let's see how else we can continue to grow upon it. So I want to thank you both. I recognize a lot of this comes from like your leadership overall, and just your ability to bring all that in. So I want to acknowledge you both on that as we get started here.
Yeah. The other thing that's very neat, I think, about our approach has been, one of the things, David, both the question that we both had is, how do you start these conversations?
Yeah.
It's, if you're running a small business like him and I are, I mean, to go and ask someone to do something that involves their task at their job it's pretty easy because that's kind of like an unwritten contract, right? I mean, I think you need to do this, and they're going to get a paycheck for doing it if they do what I say. So everything kind of works. But there is no part of the contract that says when I go to them and say, I really think you might want to think about, your nutrition habits or your sleep habits or your personal spending habits. That's a weird place to go as an employer, as a manager. And so we've been trying to have conversations with people about how to even just start that conversation, how to break down that barrier. But kind of what you were saying, if you figure that out and you find that way to start that conversation, now you've opened up a whole new avenue of communication with your team, and for them to be comfortable talking about those things, maybe with their coworkers. So you created sort of another subculture of communication and openness about an unwork related topic, which could be a beautiful thing, if you really allow it to propagate.
So let me ask you, like, when you were at that space, because you're talking about, it feels like it's an uncomfortable, it's a potentially uncomfortable place to go, especially as a business owner and employer, right? It's a change from so let me speak to this one. I grew up in my first work experiences were in a consultant practice where I was in human capital, so I was always involved with like the benefit side of things, and then I went to do learning and development at an ultimately company culture at a tech company in New York City, right? So my work experience was always like surrounded by like invested in your people, creating different like opportunities and creating rewards that go beyond just like the day-to-day experience, as well as like general compensation, like being able to like compensate people through the learning experience. In fact, the first company I was at was like, our job is to train you and make you so good that when you leave here, because most people are going to leave, when you leave, you come back and hire us, like, so like that was the intent. And so when I hear you speak in this way, I think it really shines a light to that may not be how most companies are actually, like, most people think about their organizations, or even employees think about going to a job or being at work. They may think about it more in like that exchange there. So I'm curious about some of the things that you did that didn't work as well, especially to start opening up the conversations. And let's start with just what you did first, and then like anything that you learned in terms of various approaches that seem to have a higher probability of success. And either one of you, I'll be curious what your thoughts on
that. Yeah, sure. I'll start. Well, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, so I had a lot of personal changes I needed to make along the way of tactics and strategies to use, and not being so forceful. When I first started doing the lean and those types of things in 2014 or so, there wasn't a whole lot of choices. It was just really kind of what David wanted, I would say. And it just didn't work very well for the first few years. And so I would say just a lot of it is communication, talking with the people, and just that leading by example aspect. What I found for the most part is those conversations, and if you need to have them, then you just should have them, and just try to be as delicate and sincere and compassionate with that team member, whatever you're trying to talk with them about. But I found that majority of the time, it's best to just lead by example and allow them to come up and talk to you when they're ready. If you continue to talk about those things all the time, then they're hearing the other side of that, of whatever it might be. I don't ever have any money, but I hear about them talking about being able to invest in money or invest in different things. So maybe I'll go talk to them about how they're putting some of that money aside, or they're talking about being pain free or being able to run 10 miles every single morning. Maybe I need to go and talk with that team member about what they're doing, because I can't even get out of bed without being in pain. So that to me is the best approach, is just lead by example and allow them to come and talk to you when you're ready and educate them.
That's interesting.
I would just echo that and just say that what I learned pretty quick was just to temper my own passion a little bit. Because health and nutrition is something I'm just very passionate about. Been messing with it for a long time, so I just had to make sure I meet them where they are. Don't say, okay, tomorrow you're going to do what I'm doing, but hey, can we at least talk about some things that might benefit you, and try to paint the picture of what the future could be like if possibly you could at least listen a little bit and make some changes. So it was kind of what David says, the soft approach. And making sure you temper expectations, and also, but your own passion.
When you said that, I saw Dave just had like an immediate like reaction that Dave, did something resonate when he said.
Well, yeah, I get it. I mean, he and I are very passionate about business and health in particular in these topics. So he and I could probably nerd out for a good 6 hours and not even realize what time it is. Yeah. And just understanding that not everybody has those same passions and not that same level of intensity. So it just makes me laugh because my wife will tell me the same thing. Chill out. You've made your point. You've talked about health or wellness or whatever for long enough. Let's move on.
I'm in a similar boat, so I get that. I get that there. I'm curious here, like so there's I appreciate the conversation we're having. There's things I want to try and keep looking at in terms of like how employers can like continue to open up the conversation. And for me, it's like leaders anywhere, right? Like so I reached out about like making a world of difference, like that's not a conversation that like honestly I reach out to people and I'm like, I don't know if they're going to take me seriously. I don't know if they're going to really like understand like what it is that like this mission is about, and I think about that within the context of what I'm doing. But I like, as you're describing what you're saying here about like starting up a conversation about wellness and mental health in the workplace, like it doesn't feel that different. It's a totally different component, but it's like, if this is not what people are used to, or if this is not what people are actually like, just that they themselves are passionate about, there's a line to cross. So I appreciate you bringing that in because I just see like the parallels of this in many different contexts. The question I have here is like, as this has gone on for you, have you seen any of like, has there been anything that like your employees themselves have started to initiate? Have there been things that have been able to come out of this as like benefits or offshoots that aren't necessarily spearheaded by the two of you yet? And if so, like can you just share a little bit of a story around that and how you as the employer were able to continue to support that?
I can speak to that a little bit. We have monthly sessions with the coach that we have coming in now. And we usually have, I think I've got about maybe as much as a dozen people participating in those. We have 2 sessions each time, so we don't disrupt production too much. But what's happened is outside of that now we've sort of opened another topic of conversation for all of us. So we're all, I have supervisors and frontline people and managers, but we all are on the same page when it comes to this one topic. So suddenly all these, this hierarchical stuff gets broken down. And we're, if I see somebody, slamming a pizza or something like that, I'm like, hey, didn't you pay attention yesterday? Like that's not what we're doing right now. Or we're hacking on each other for our lack of steps that we're supposed to be getting each day, or how much water we're drinking. I mean, so there's just kind of this new camaraderie that comes out of this, other mission outside of our normal workplace mission that I think is healthy and it's kind of fun. And it just, like I said, breaks down barriers that needed to be broken down anyway.
Yeah, like as you're saying this, I'm imagining, I'm remembering, not even imagine, I'm remembering like what it's like to be able to sit down with someone and to actually have to for in that context have a flatter organization, have a flatter experience, and the types of conversations that would come up from there, the level of honesty, the level of truth, the level of feedback that would come in, the places where it's like, hey, this is where I'm actually having a problem, and as well as the bonds that were created in like different areas of the business that wouldn't normally talk to each other. So I am curious, like, if and we'll move on to a different place outside of this, but it feels like there's a lot of benefits that you're ancillary benefits that people may not think about when they choose to enter into a conversation like this, or to open up a conversation like this. So I just want to make sure we're spending some time just exploring that, because like for me, I said I remember, but I'm like, I think for others they may have to imagine. And I think if you can keep sharing some things, it'd be really helpful. Any other like kind of ancillary or like unexpected benefits? Like, and maybe I'll ask the question this way: like, what's the one thing that ended up happening, or what's one of the things that ended up happening that you're like, you totally didn't see it coming, but it's been a really beneficial thing to you and your organization?
I have a couple of different examples, but as I mentioned, we do a morning meeting every single day as a company. Every employee rotates through that, so each different employee leads that meeting every day. So again, kind of trying to empower them, trying to give them ownership, as well as just general practice and talking in front of individuals. So one of the first things we had that came just from that alone is an individual came up to us and said, I'm now comfortable speaking in front of my church because you forced me to get out of my comfort zone and talk in front of my teammates and realize that when I'm done talking, No one's crying or telling me that I'm ugly or horrible to listen to or whatever the other things are. It's all fine and everybody's, welcoming. So that was one kind of just smaller aspect. I had another teammate, though, that came to me again during the whole kind of the COVID thing, and about a year or a month or so in, said they had recently gone to the doctor, and the doctor gave them just general it wasn't dire, but just not a very good health report. And they said, I've been watching what you've been doing over the last few years, and if you can do it, why can't I do it? And they now have gone on to completely change their life in the sense of lost over 60 pounds, is on daily workout regimens, changes the way that they eat, changing the way, really the entire, I would say, the way that they operate. And it's very humbling when someone's going to come to you and say that you were a part of the catalyst or the reason why I changed after going to the doctor and seeing that, no offense to you, David, but you're nobody special. You're nobody different. You can do it and I can do it. And it was awesome to see. And that team member has been with me for a good decade or so and continues to also push me along when I need some motivation now. So it's cool. It's been fun.
I appreciate you both sharing this here, just giving us a chance to see this in a very real way, because I have someone once said to me, you can't be what you can't see, right? And I ascribe to something that a mentor said to me, which is like, you can only take people as deep as you have gone yourself, and that comes from a level of like both skill set, but also a level of vulnerability, right? So both of you have introduced something into your businesses that maybe other people have not. Their experiences up until that point didn't have in there, and in creating that, this aspect of like leading by example, you've created the space for other people to continue to grow for themselves and take more ownership and find different ways to grow within the organization and beyond and in their own personal lives. So I really wanted to say, I really respect what you're doing here. And it's cool that you brought it into your organizations, and then now we're taking the time to take it out to other people, right? So let's talk a little bit here then, a little bit more about like healthy team and healthy business. And I think that honestly, what's going through my mind as I'm talking to you all is like, I get excited to hear about more about what do you all see coming next? Like, what are some of the things that you're working on? Like when you think about where you take a healthy team and healthy business, where you think about like the impact you can have as this continues to expand, what are some of the things that you're thinking about next?
Well, we're actually planning doing our first crack at a small conference, a one-day conference here in our town. And before we got on the air, we were working on, the nuts and bolts of that. So that's something we're working on, to try to invite other employers to just kind of talk about what we've been doing, what we envision that they might be able to do, and we're having guest speakers, some of our past podcast guests, come in and talk to them and educate other employers, so we can hopefully spread the message at least locally, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And I think another thing we might work on at some point is can we figure out a way to package up what David and I have created in our businesses and offer that, out, whether it's as a product or as an ebook or whatever it might be, to other employers that might say, it sound like a good idea, but how in the heck do I even start it, or where do I begin? Or what do I do? What does it look like in my company? That kind of stuff. So those are things we're thinking about, and just growing the podcast. I mean, we want more and more people to hear this message. There's a lot of employers out there who have impact on their teams, and they need to know that this, as far as we're concerned, is also part of their responsibility. Not just providing a place to work and a paycheck, but looking out for these people. You spend a lot of time with them, so you need to take care of them. Yeah, you can add to that.
Nope, you summarize it perfect.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so it's not often that I take a little breath in the beat, but I really, Josh, when you talked about like the responsibility part, I just felt, I'm like, yeah, like this is like what an opportunity as a leader of this organization, of your organizations, to really show up for your people in a way that goes above what they may think. It may not be above and beyond, because it's like, this is your responsibility. We should be doing this. And so just bringing that into the picture really sets things off. Dave, you talked a bit about like lean manufacturing and such. I'm curious about when I think about lean things in general, you talk about continuous improvement, and embedded in continuous improvement is like the element of like iteration. You're the expert, so let me know, if I'm saying anything that's not right. But like, iteration and having things that don't work out, that don't pan out. And I'm kind of curious about like, in this could be either through your experience with Healthy Team and Healthy Business, or just in general. I'm kind of interested in your approaches to bringing together a vision of something and trying to bring it to life through a lean way. And I'll be curious if we can like integrate that a little bit for us here. And I'll tell you why, because I think a lot of people here are getting ready to step into something. You're saying like you're putting together the conference in January. Like, there's the approach that comes in of like, who am I to do it? And B, like, do I actually know what it will take? Like, what if I fail, so on and so forth. And so I'd love to just talk into like my general premise is you probably will to some extent, but you can like, there are ways to do this in a way that mitigates the risk overall. And just given your experience, Dave, I'd love to kind of hear what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very challenging thing to do. And I would just say it's really helpful that Josh and I do the podcast too, to keep us both accountable and wanting to continue to move it forward, because there is a lot of pushback when you start to try to do these different things, because it's kind of like Josh said before, it's a little bit outside the norm. Hey, I wanted to come in and work at 9 and I wanted to leave at 5, not talk about my health, not talk about my family, not. However, if you again kind of try to structure it from the place of, I just want to come here and be of help, I just want to offer guidance, education, and help, that again is what will help that. But when I was trying to do it, I thought about stopping the lean meetings and having the different people countless times. I mean, up into even a year or two ago, just like, it's a very hard thing to do. It requires a lot of time. And then again, a lot of guidance, and as well as flexibility, the ability to take the feedback from your team and then change something that you maybe have already spent a week working on, but then they show you a different way to do it. So I would say for me, I don't know if it answers the question completely, but is, have the objective in your own head, and then maybe some different things that you can kind of rely back onto when you hit some of those struggle points. If it's either a good friend in Josh, and be able to say, this is something I'm struggling with, which is what I will do all the time. Hey, Josh, I'm dealing with this. What do you have as advice or guidance? So I would just say that is something that will probably arise, is a challenge. You're trying to do something against the kind of the grain and the kind of the standard operating of a business, in particular with small businesses. Normally people will always tell you, I don't have the resources to do these lean meetings, talk about health. I'm going to hire it out to somebody else. Then again, the problem is they don't know your people like your people. You're spending 40 plus hours a week with them. So hopefully that answers the question. If not, I'm happy to dig deeper.
Yeah, no, it answered the question that it was an answer to a question that was important, right? And I think that, like, if you don't mind, I'd like to, some of the things I heard from that were, one, like, just as you're bringing this to life, it's going to call in your actual leadership, right? So there's things that I believe that like if I'm imagining, Dave, that you can have these meetings and it could be incredibly efficient if you just ran the meetings, you knew what you wanted to get done, you could run it and just be done. However, you're like, I'm building a larger capacity and capability within my organization and within these people, and so it's going to take longer from that place. So one of them is just like having like the patience and the leadership to allow for others to develop, because like you're developing in many different ways. Like I'm picking up on this as it kind of like, oh, yet another way that they're like subtly but fully like bringing someone up, and it's really cool. Like there's a lot of small areas that are all adding up to each other. Everything's very consistent in that regard. So I'm hearing that. One, two, I'm also hearing accountability, right? So being able to be in a place where it's like, all right, let's be accountable to what it is that we want to create. It's going to be hard along the way, but like we're still going to make sure that at least one other person knows with it. And so with accountability, it's like accountability and not doing it alone, right? So you found someone here, you have someone you can trust, so you can just keep going back and forth with, and there's a level of like honesty on it, instead of like trying to just kind of like grit it through and white knuckle your way through it. It's like, hey, I'm running into this issue right here. What like how would you approach it? And I like bringing that into the mix here, just so that we can like see like, hey, as we take on something, as we take on something that is new for us, but also new for other people, like there are some overall principles that we can follow to make it work. You two found each other, and you brought it out that way. You have your different leadership styles, and you bring it and you incorporate it into your organization, but you're still finding like some core pillars that work for you to navigate the vision. I really respect you both for that there. Awesome. Well, I think right now we're going to start wrapping up our conversation here. I'm grateful to the two of you here. What I want to do is give each of you individually a chance to share. We'll do this. I want you to share something that you would like to make sure that the listeners of this year, that the people out there who are shaping their world, who are looking to boldly start conversations that they don't think people are having, and in the ways that they do it. I would love for you to share just any advice you have for them, or anything that you learned or think that you wish you knew getting started. Can we start with you, Dave, and then we'll go to you, Josh?
Sure. I would say just do it. That's probably the biggest thing. I know for most people, they start to just overanalyze everything, and they start to sit there. I want to do this thing that Dave and Josh are talking about, but first I have to get this, and this ready. Just start it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And to your point on vulnerability, again, that shows that, I mean, don't come out there all unorganized, obviously spend the proper amount of time to prepare it, but hey, I'm going to do it by Friday, and I'm going to launch it on this Friday. And that's what I would just say. Just get out there and do it. That's a big concept of lean. Don't sit there and just overanalyze. Well, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't have the people. BS. You do. All right. You've already told me the reasons why it's not going to work. Let's start trying to figure out some reasons why it will. That's what I would tell you. And that's the biggest thing I would say. Also, for anybody else that has the same type of mindset as Josh and I, we welcome the opportunity to collaborate just like we are with you. So we can only learn by again, communicating with one another and sharing the different resources and assets that we're able to bring to the table. So we would welcome the opportunity to talk with any of your listeners that feel like they offer that same thing. So I appreciate you having Josh and I on, and that's my parting.
I like that. Let me ask you, what's the best way, like for someone who does want to continue the conversation with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can reach out to us for our email. It's healthy teams, healthy business, or sorry, team dudes.
Yeah.
Team dudes at hotmail.com.
No, healthyteam.healthybusiness.net.
What's the email?
It's team dudes at healthyteam.healthybusiness.net. And our website is healthyteam.healthybusiness.net.
Thank you, Josh, for
saving me there. All right, awesome.
Put me on the spot like that.
Yeah. We'll make sure that's captured there. And Josh, how about you? What's something that you want to like just impart for people, or like a takeaway that feels important to you?
Yeah, I kind of echo what David said about just starting. I mean, just go ahead and go. Tough conversations are tough conversations. If you have them next week or you have them today, so why not just have them today? I guess is the way to do that. And these turn out to not be tough conversations. They're just new and different conversations. So I think it's great. It's important. We had a recent guest on our podcast that really kind of just struck a nerve with me when he talked about stress. And actually several of our podcast guests have talked about stress. Dave and I have reflected on that. But one of the things this guy said was your perception of stress is different depending on where you are in the hierarchy of an organization. So if you're the owner or CEO or whatever, you have stress, but you are in control of that stress in some way, shape, or form, more so than someone who's further down the line who has stress kind of imposed upon them from the outside. And so I think when you empower people to do something like take control of their health or their wellness, financial wellness, mental health, whatever, you can remove a level of stress for them, because now that you're giving them a level of control over something that before they thought was out of their control. And I think that's a powerful side effect of kind of some of those conversations we're having, is now all of a sudden people understand, hey, I thought I couldn't deal. I thought I was gonna have to be on this medication for the rest of my life, or I thought I was always going to be overweight, or I thought I was always going to be in pain. Now I can take control of that. And it has nothing to do with their work life, immediately, but at least you've given them control over something, and maybe you've, helped reduce their stress level a little bit. So if that's the outcome of having that difficult conversation the first time, then I think it's well worth taking that step and making it happen. So I just encourage, again, people to just go ahead and start doing it. and sticking their neck out there and see what happens.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I will say, like, this struck a nerve with me because there's a project that's in the back of my mind that, that I realized I'm like, oh, I think I'm doing it. I think I got caught in the overthinking. I gotta just say we're getting started on Monday. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then let all of a sudden the possibilities just become really clear from there. All right. Well, both of you, I really appreciate it. I end each conversation with one last question for everyone. I'm going to ask each of you individually here, and it's called a time capsule question. And this one here, you've been given so much to other people. I want to make sure you have something that you give to yourself. And the way that we do this here is this. You've lived your life up until this point. You've had so much experience, you know, and things are moving for you. There's going to be a time in the future, maybe 10, 15 years from now, even, where like you find yourself like in a place where you're like, unsure, on unsure footing. What's the message that you want to leave for yourself in this moment that you would like love to hear later on when you find yourself like having to find your path once again? All right. And I'll let either one of you start off on that. But it's a message for yourself that you're leaving now to listen to later.
I would like to tell myself it was all worth it. I'm glad you did it.
Thank you, Josh.
I would just say keep on the path. You know, we always will get upset, I think, comparing ourselves with the Joneses or saying, I wish I had this or I had that. And if you stick to your goals, your objectives, and your 5-10-year plans, then those things are achievable and they will happen. And I know sometimes with myself, I get upset that I'm not further along, but it takes time. You can't just, Rome wasn't built in a day. So that's what I would tell myself is just continue on the path. You're doing a good job. Keep moving forward.
Well, I appreciate both of you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for building the experience so that you can come here and actually share it with all of us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know that I've grown through the conversation, and I'm really, really excited for what our world shapers do and what other people do as they continue to work with you all. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.